And we are live on another Thursday seminar. And we are getting close to the end of another series of seminars with a very relevant topic, with a very distinguished guest. We have a guest, Jordi, who is a scientist in core areas of our my personal interest in artificial intelligence is at Qualcomm. But today I convinced, and it was not so hard to convince him to not talk about all these AI hot topics, but to focus on an initiative that I think it's very inspiring. It's a social extension activity for many years. It's called Labdoo. Jordi has presented this even at events like did. It's a pleasure, Jordi, to have you today with us, with our community in the University of Campinas in Brazil. I can see many uh, connection points to bring Labdoo, apply Labdoo practices to our region. And we leave the other scientific networking AI conversation on the agenda. And with that, and Jordi, I don't introduce all the full biographies of these distinguished speakers like you. It's so long, and everyone can check online. So let me stop sharing and give you the sharing rights. And thank you again for being here. And let's talk in around 40 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Christian, very much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here, everyone. Christian was just telling me about this program, this class that you're doing, this seminar class. I think it's a great idea. Congrats for the organization, and also I hear there's good energy coming into this, so that's always great. And apparently you've done some homework coming to this, so I won't give you an exam, don't worry. But yeah, looking forward to having this conversation, and let's make this an open conversation. And yeah, so let me just go ahead and share my slides. That's going to help us drive the conversation. So just actually this. Sorry, this is not. For some reason, it's sharing the wrong. Let me stop. Wait, but so I'm gonna just a sec. Let me try this. So I'm not it's sure. Is it surely showing the first slide? I want to show the first slide, but it's not. Chrome tab. Oh, okay, wait a second. No. Okay. No, I see. Yeah. I had the tabs open. So let me just switch here. That should do it now. Okay. So I'm gonna now I had it also open in the other browser. So you should be now seeing my slides. Let me move things around a little bit. Okay. All right. So as Christian was saying, yeah, my background is on communication systems. That's been my career, although these days everybody is shifting to AI also. So that's almost like a necessity. Everything we do has AI in it. And currently I'm in Qualcomm. I'm in the AI research division at Qualcomm. The focus there is on fundamental AI research. But my conversation today, and Christian actually, when he reached out to me, he said he asked me to talk about Labdoo, which is a separate project, completely separate. And this is something that I have been doing now maybe about 20 years, actually. So since the first trip that I did, although Labdoo has been running as an official NGO for 15 years. But yeah, and so this is something that I and the community have been working on as we're all volunteers of this. This is a nonprofit. This is maybe a way to a channel for us that are in the high tech to also give back to the community, the many things that we've been given to us. And yeah, so think of this as a maybe different conversation. We'll talk about technology. We'll talk about community, and hopefully you find some connection and a way to get away from the day-to-day routine of the frenziness of all the things that are happening in high tech. So let me just jump into it, and I'll start first saying where does the project Labdoo start from? So the project starts actually, I mentioned 20 years ago, I was a student doing my grad school, and I was also involved in the startups. I was in the US, in West Coast, in California. So, and then I had the thought of doing something, when you look at high tech, really you wonder, you ask yourself, who are you helping in some way? Who are you working for? Or when you develop technology, who is it benefiting? Of course, eventually the whole humanity can benefit from technology, right? The technologies like internet and so on. But at the beginning, only the first users of the technology benefit from the new inventions. So I wanted to do something about bringing the things that we had to a school that maybe didn't have it. And so what I did is I collected laptops from the university, from my colleagues, from my classmates, laptops, or from their parents or local businesses, laptops that no longer people no longer use. I installed Linux in them, and then I traveled to Guatemala for a summer of 2005, and then I deployed the laptops in a school. So from California here down to Guatemala, and this was the deployment of these laptops in this school. And then for that summer, one of the best summers of my life, I should say, I was in that school showing the kids how to use the computers. Obviously, for these kids, they had never seen a computer. There was no internet connection, so we got a connectivity from Telefónica Guatemala at that point, as it was called, and we were able to connect them on a DSL line. And then that summer, I also traveled around, visit also other schools. Coming back from that trip, you think you're going to be answering questions, but you actually get with more questions than answers from that trip. And obviously, going back to California, the contrast was amazing. Like, in terms of these schools really don't have even the most basic things like books or pencils or a blackboard. And here we are back to the US, in a society that we have so much excess capacity with everything. So there's got to be something that we could do. And then I thought about the question, how we can replicate this trip that I did, not 10 times or 100 times, but why not 1,000 times, or why not even more times? How could we scale up, right? So when you look, for instance, at networking, we talk about the scalability, right? So how do we scale up technology, right? So, and then that's the thought that I had, is that instead of me traveling, what I could do is program a platform that would allow others to do this trip in a globally coordinated fashion, basically. And that's what I decided to do, because I knew how to program. I decided to spend, my time, like, as a volunteer. I was, like, maybe sometime here and sometime there. I had my laptop, and I kept programming a platform that would allow people to coordinate this globally, and allow anybody who, no longer uses a laptop. Maybe you have a laptop sitting there in your drawer, piling up dust, that there's a way that we could bring it to school somewhere in the planet in a way that it's scalable, zero cost, just through enabling global coordination. And that's what really Labdoo is. Labdoo is a platform that allows you to coordinate that. So, you talk about social networks. So instead of being a social network where you share pictures, it's a social network where you share your time to volunteer for a cause of, and the belief that education should be a universal right. So since then, I'm just going to show a projection. Since the platform was launched for the first time in 2000, a few late, 2009, 2010, version 1 of the platform, then the project started basically growing as people start using it. And I'm going to show a projection of some of the initial stages, how it expanded. It expanded in Central America, Africa, and Europe. So here you have activity, which means both donors of laptops and then recipients of the laptops. So through the Labdoo platform, we can track all this information, basically. So when a laptop is donated, you attach a QR code to the laptop, and that allows you to know where the destination of that laptop, so that brings transparency, etc. So we can actually reproduce exactly how the network grew. So I'm just going to run through some partial simulation here. Eventually, now this is where we are today. More than 3,000 schools in 155 countries, reaching to more than 1 million students. Now, these are big numbers, of course, but what I'd like you to take away from this is that this is only made possible thanks to people's collaboration, people getting together and thinking, yes, we want this, we think universal education, giving access to education is important. I want to contribute 5 minutes of my time, 1 hour, maybe I'm traveling and I want to bring that laptop, etc. Right? So this is all made possible only not because of me, of course, but because of thousands of people who made this possible. And this is really the message that I wanted to bring here. So through technology here, bringing to a platform, we can kind of coordinate globally and overcome a challenge together. That's one of the principles here. Okay, let me show you some of the pictures, because I sometimes, pictures is worth more than any word that I can speak. Just to give you some examples of what it means to give a laptop to a child, or to a student, or to a refugee, or to somebody who really needs that for education. And so you have Thailand. So these are some random pictures: Togo, Tanzania, Sri Lanka, India, Guinea, Laos, Ghana, Pakistan. So Pakistan, a place where sometimes girls are not allowed to, not sometimes, but actually they are not allowed to go to school. So, but we can also reach there through collaboration. And just to bring a bit more momentum here, maybe I'll just share for a minute a video to give you a sense of it, and then we'll talk about how the Labdoo platform really works, okay? So let me know if you don't hear the audio. I'm going to assume that you do. All right, so hopefully that gives you a sense of the notion of project, community, movement, and the possibilities that are ahead of you also as you go into this journey of high tech and science, right? Think of this as, think about it like just with the ability to program, and with the knowledge that you gain, the leverage that you can have, and ultimately how you could impact your communities. It doesn't have to be like a global community. It could be something local. It could be your local community, right? But coming to this call, Christian, Luis, and some of us were just chatting before coming here. Christian mentioned this hour here is one of my favorite hours in the week, and I can sympathize with that, because all the energy that the students bring, and all the meeting people and all that. So yes, we are passionate about our work. We are maybe engineers, scientists, And I have to admit, I'm also passionate about my work, um, but I also wanted to share that for me and for the community, also Labdoo is a way. It's something different. It's a way to kind of give back what maybe society is giving us. Right? We have the privilege to get an education. You are in the grad school program, going for a master's degree or a PhD degree or undergrad, whatever. That is precious, right? And so the ability that and the knowledge that you gain from that and the skills that you learn from that that if you also find a way to kind of share it back, but then that becomes very special. So I'll say for me, like for the week, which is also very intense work wise, but and with the things that we're passionate about, I really very much love to be with my team and having all these technology conversations and advancing technology, but also having that phone call with an NGO is also very special because that's where we connect also at the human level, where you are thinking about maybe somebody else, right? And especially because we're looking at here at the education. So some food for thought as you go into also your own journey, that there are ways that we can also connect back with the community. And I do hope that you are able to do that because it will make you feel nice and well connected and with a sense of purpose as well. So with that, personal kind of sharing, I wanted to maybe just tell you how really Labdoo works. Okay, a couple of facts. So to begin with, every year the world buys about more than 400 million laptops and tablets globally. So it's a huge amount of devices that we buy. So a similar amount of devices therefore get replaced because usually when you buy a new device, you're leaving behind another one, right? So we're talking about billions of devices that go unused with a lot of potential, right? Fact number two, people really, despite what we might see sometimes in the news, really we do have goodwill and care about others and feel well when we help others. So these two are really the building blocks of Labdoo, the two pillars. The first one enables the circular economy, enables a project that is scalable because we don't need to consume more technology. We don't need to buy more technology or produce more technology. We can reutilize the technology. The second one is just leveraging all the good energy that humanity has to basically do something and focus on a good mission. So with this combined with a platform, so technology, because Labdoo at the end of the day is a platform, allows to bring these two resources into action and enable the global collaboration. So the solution here is a social network to unlock both millions of excess laptops and tons of excess goodwill. It's a non-for-profit project. None of us gets paid for this. In fact, we eliminated money from the organization. We do not accept money. With the exception of there's only one cost, which is the platform itself. The platform runs in Amazon Cloud, so there's a yearly cost that we pay through some small micro financing, but we decouple from sort of the funding system, and that's why Labdoo is so scalable and resilient even to economic crisis, because we don't need funding to run. We just need people who really believe in the mission and in excess capacity, laptops that people throw away, and that's always there, right? In fact, whenever there is a crisis like COVID or some economic crisis or something that happens to the world, Labdoo tends to accelerate. It's kind of the other way. Typically, NGOs, maybe unfortunately, because when there's a crisis, then the funding gets cut, and so that hurts the people who or the organizations that most need that funding, because Labdoo is decoupled from the fundraising from the funding aspects. We're resilient to that, and actually we do better when there is a crisis. And the reason is because when there is a crisis, two things happen. One is that more people need help. Which is demand increases, and also when there's a crisis, more people are willing to help. They realize about the situation, and then you have people willing to help. So then the supply, which is volunteers help, grow, right? And that's actually accelerates even more. So with this, we saw this with COVID, that there was a lot of need for laptops because people, students were getting left behind without a computer, not being able to connect, and then people really wanted to help. So that's sort of some of the properties of the Labdoo platform. So to summarize, it is a non-profit project. It is collaborative. It is fully distributed. So there goes the analogy with communication systems. There is no central point, centralized point, so it's fully distributed. The code of the social network is open and free. It's a GPL license. You can actually access, you can see exactly the code that we run in the platform. It's open source. Anyone can participate as a volunteer. If you want to program also, you can help program the platform. If you want to bring a laptop to school, you can do that. The platform is designed to also to be zero cost, and that means two things. Zero cost, economic cost, as I mentioned. The laptops are for free. We don't, it's all based on the circular economy, so there is no economic cost. But also zero cost in terms of the emissions. So it's designed so that we, in the mission to bring a laptop from, say, one country to another, say from Paris to Kampala in Uganda. So this journey to bring the laptop is zero cost also environmentally. It's designed so that we don't generate additional emissions. How do we do that? So for instance, the transportation, we repurpose people who travel. So if you go to the Labdoo platform, and you can actually announce your trip and then bring a laptop to the next destination, basically. So that can be coordinated through the platform. So again, every action in Labdoo is designed in a way that doesn't generate additional emissions. We don't buy a new laptop because that would generate emissions, because you need to produce a new laptop. We repurpose laptops, etc. And again, we don't require any funding, which means that we are resilient to global economic crisis. And also the fact that we don't require funding means, from a culture standpoint, from an organization standpoint, means that everybody who does Labdoo is very clear on why we do it. We don't do it because we're getting paid for this, because nobody's getting paid. So we do it because we believe in the fact that every person in the planet should be able to access education. So this no funding property of the system basically helps a lot in bringing this culture into the team, that everybody knows exactly what we do. There's no confusion, basically. And of course, it saves a lot of headaches, not having to deal with money. Okay, let me talk about another concept. This is a concept that I used to talk quite a lot at the beginning of the project years back. There's this book called The Wealth of Networks by Yoke Bengler. Maybe you've seen. But it tells you how you can basically achieve large missions by breaking the project down into small pieces, basically, and then distribute these small pieces away so that people can help, and then bring it together to actually create a larger project. An example of how the Wealth of Networks works is the Wikipedia. The Wikipedia is an example where, instead of having somebody who writes the whole encyclopedia, which would take it takes a lot of effort, as it was done, traditionally in the past. The Wikipedia, actually, what it does, it breaks down the big problem into small. And then says, you just write one article, and then somebody else writes another article, and by collaboration with millions of people, then you can build a large encyclopedia, right? So this concept, referred as the Wealth of Networks, is an embedded concept into the Labdoo platform. What we do in particular is break down the task of, bringing a large volume of laptops from one place to another by decomposing into smaller steps, and then leveraging people's collaboration. So we say that the distance from a laptop to a student or a child is 4 steps. Step 1 is collecting the laptop. Somebody donates the laptop. Step 2, you sanitize the laptop. That means we eliminate all the information from the laptop. Of course, the laptop has personal information. It's very important to eliminate the information. We do a shredding operation in the Linux OS. So we put Linux and we shred the operating system and the hard disk. And then we also install educational and an image which has a lot of educational content. So we maintain an image based on Ubuntu, which converts the laptop basically in a library, effectively in a library, which you know uh, hundred gigabytes of educational content, which that includes, for instance, the whole Wikipedia goes into the laptop, uh, the whole Khan Academy videos go into the laptop, UNESCO content, copyleft books. So effectively, we convert the laptop into an educational machine, into a library that you can deploy then at school. Then step number 3, you keep it until the traveler is available, and then step number 4, once the traveler is available, then it transports that laptop, bringing it into a luggage basically, and then delivering it to the school. Effectively, what this means is that we have collaborations with hundreds of NGOs that are going to these destinations, that are already operating in these destinations, because they are going there for a summer trip to a school, or they have some water sanitation project there or something, and then they just piggyback on that. Their laptops, when they travel, they bring their laptops, right? So that allows us to actually grow. This is a snapshot of some of the routes that we have active, that allow us to basically carry the laptops from one place to another just through collaboration. Again, so this is what we call a CO2 neutral transportation system, and also zero economic costs, right? So so this way we ensure that the laptop can reach the destination without generating additional emissions, just through collaboration. Yeah, so if you go to the Labdoo platform, you can play with it, but yeah, you have some of the features here. You have a place where there are teams where you can create a team and talk with other volunteers. Do Trips, for instance, is where you can register a trip, and then if you're traveling, then you can register a trip and announce it, and then if you have a hub nearby, then you can collect the laptop and bring it to the next step. Everything is done transparently, so the donor receives messages when the laptop arrives to the destination. You can see the pictures of the laptop at the destination. This is very important, again, for transparency and accountability reasons. If you give an NGO $100, it's very difficult to trace that money and tell you that money was used for this cause, right? That's why we also don't accept money. But if you give an object like a laptop, I can put a tag, a QR code, and then I can send you notifications of, right now the laptop has been sanitized, now the laptop is traveling, now the laptop reached a destination. This is cool. And then you can click on a photo album and then recognize your laptop visually, and check that indeed that's your laptop, right? So this ensures that the platform is healthy, resilient. Everything is open information, so you can access to at any point in time where the status, etc. So that's what we can enable through the platform. Okay, now I'm going to touch also on the concept of hub. So in Labdoo, we have like 4 main objects. We have the laptops or tablets that we call them Dootronics, like Labdoo Electronics. We have the schools that receive the laptops or the devices. We call them edu villages, educational villages. We have the trips that carry the laptops, so travelers. We call them Do Trips, as in Labdoo Trips. And number four, we have hubs. Hubs are places in the planet where people get together. They collect laptops from their local community. They sanitize them, get them ready to be transported to a destination. The destination could be somewhere far distant, or could be somewhere local. And again, this could be really anywhere. At Labdoo, we don't have North helping South or rich helping poor. It doesn't work like that. So we break that stereotype. It's you could need help anywhere. Like, for instance, I'm from Barcelona, so we support local projects that are in need also, because there's also need in my area. There could be a refugee association, or it could be some family that some school that has families that don't have access to technology, right? So really, you could find projects locally too, or internationally. If you're traveling, you're interested, then so that is totally up to you. So with hubs, you can basically see some of the activities that I just mentioned, collecting laptops, sanitizing them, and coordinating delivery to schools. Through the Labdoo platform, you can manage your dashboard, and you can get to see your inventory, get to know which countries you are impacting. You can also get to know how many CO2 emissions you have saved, etc. So right. So let me just switch gears a little bit. I'm going to show you some pictures of examples of lab hubs. So these are people who are doing things in their hub. This is Mexico. This is California. I think this is Switzerland, Germany. So different places. I think this is Spain, etc. So we welcome anybody to actually create a hub. We also have different workflows. So for instance, we have another workflow. We have a workflow for companies, what's called CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility. So companies are often also very interested in showing to the world that they're also doing goodwill actions. And so they can either donate laptops, or they can also create their own hubs. Because Labdoo can report things through the platform, can report your impact. It can report how many schools you're helping. It can report how many students you're helping. And it can also report how many CO2 emissions you're saving from the planet. Because every time you expand the life of a laptop, you can actually compute how many CO2, how many emissions you're saving. That can go into a report that companies like to put in their final year report and announce that all the goodwill things that you're doing. Now, another workflow is what we call Labdoo for Cities, which is something that one can also implement in their own village, in their own hometown. This can be done in collaboration with your hometown. For instance, what we do is we partner with libraries, public libraries, that become entry points of the circular economy. So the nice thing about libraries is that libraries have a lot of hours open to the public. They even open on Saturdays. So then citizens can go there and bring their laptop. So there's a dropping point where they can drop their laptop. And there's a nice connection between libraries that try to promote education and reading and all that with the Labdoo cause, which is about also education. So you can partner with your local libraries, propose them to create a hub, and then so that then the citizens can actually bring the laptops to the library, and you can announce that. And then if you have a hub, you can sanitize the laptops and then deliver them to a school. So these are examples of what you put in the library. You put a poster like this, so people know that there's a dropping point there, etc. Okay, so I touched on some of the things. You're welcome to visit the Labdoo platform and play with it. But just to wrap up, I have one final slide. And I thought of something that maybe to take away, which is if you look at the current context, sometimes you may sort of wonder, with all that's happening with the AI and even at the global landscape, all the uncertainties. It's just like things are moving very fast in many different fronts. So yeah, we live in a complex global landscape, and the thinking here is that more than ever before, or we need initiatives that emphasize what unites us, and that foster trust across communities. So the belief that we have more in common than the differences that we may have, and also the importance of building trust networks. I think of this as two important pillars, even more today in the context where we are, where we need to face global challenges like how we're going to deal with AI and how we're going to deal with climate change and all these things, right? And so the idea that when you look at something like Labdoo, for instance, Labdoo is made possible excuse me, because this broad consensus among us, I would say that we would all agree that education is good for all. That a world where education is a free ride for any person on the planet is something good. So, and this is something that no matter what your ideology or where you come from, that we can all agree with, right? So, broadly speaking, right? So, the belief that there is a lot of things that we have in common that can unite us for a common goal. And number two, also that it is possible to foster trust, despite what we see in the news sometimes, or the difficulties that maybe the current leaders have in getting along with each other, right? Labdoo itself, and Labdoo is an example, but I don't want to just say Labdoo because there are plenty of examples that show that it is possible to build things based on trust. And the fact that in Labdoo, I'm collaborating with people that I don't even know, but I know that we all believe that this is a good thing and that we want to make it happen, then it's what drives us, right? So yes, this is indeed very possible. And then what I like to invoke here is Yuval Harari has a very nice, interesting way to explain the interplay between democracy and technology, which I think for some of you who are in the high tech, also the science and technology and even the communication systems may find this an interesting connection, hopefully. So when you talk about democracy, larger scale democracy is something that is actually new. In the past, large scale democracy has never been possible simply because we didn't have the means to implement it. So if you look back in history, you had societies like the city-states in Greece or Rome that were examples of democracies, but only because they were small. We never had examples of democracies with more than like 1 million people or 100 million people, like we do have these days. And this has been made possible thanks to technology. So, and in particular, thanks to communication. The fact that we're able to communicate enables democracy at the scale. Because in the end, democracy is a conversation as opposed to a dictatorship, right? Where there's no conversation. So when you look at technology, so we're going through, say, the print, the telegraph, radio, television, internet. This has enabled us to progress and to enable an increasingly better, more refined democracy, because then we're able to communicate, discuss things in the public, and organize at a scale ourselves in that conversation, which is democracy, right? Now we're adding AI to it, which is something very unique and different, because AI itself is an agent, and it kind of puts itself in the conversation among us, right? So now we're not just talking with human to human, we're talking human, agent, human. So there's something that we're putting in between that is affecting also our communication. The bottom line is that each of these innovations creates democracy lies on top of this technology layer here. So invoking also the OSI layers from communication systems, we have a layering architecture. So indeed, democracy is made possible thanks to technology. So it's overlaid on top of technology. But every time there's a change in technology, this creates sort of an earthquake on democracy, right? And so democracy needs to readapt, basically. The good thing is that democracy is also very resilient, and it's able to learn new ways to adapt, and traditionally has gotten better and better as time goes by. Now, with AI, it's something that we still don't know what will happen, but I wanted to bring this perspective because we live in times that are very uncertain, also that we don't really understand also what we might be creating yet, but think of this, when you think of this from a historical standpoint, it's just another earthquake on the technology layer that's shaking up democracy and needs to be readjusted. How it's going to be readjusted all depends on us. And that's, I think, the key element. So it's up to us how we're going to be driving this. And just to wrap up the conversation here, what I would like to say is that one thing that can help us, I think, going into this new era where we're adding these agents in between our communications, is to emphasize what really unites us and to continue to strive for building trust among ourselves. Um, it could be doing things like Labdoo, or it could be doing many other things that are available, basically. So, and with that, that's I think concludes my talk for now, and open for questions.
Jordi, thank you very much for your great story. I was checking out here the comments, the questions in preparation of our students. And let me start with a slight bad news that the YouTube streaming, for some reason, did not start up. So I didn't have the agent to validate the, so because I'm sure I clicked here, but it's recorded, so I will post it
Mhm.
in the same series. No one will notice except for those who were waiting for the live streaming. Okay, my bad.
Okay.
And that's a first point I wanted to mention. And I think you were very very timely to bring the reflections that you just brought, and they are long standing, very hard to solve. And Labdoo is an example of how valuable key value things should be pursued in these times of crisis, or very conflicting times. Okay, good. Let's see. Let me see if there is some comment here in our chat note, or if Jefferson wants to start. If not, I will share with you the spreadsheet. I can
Mhm.
also start here showing you, because you showed some interest in what the students do, and this is how it looks like. Okay, so
Mhm.
they at the end they come up with this at least one question, but they have elaborated a small set of papers, and they identify correctly your own publications are expected. It's always
Mhm.
interesting how students embrace, and the new generations embrace these new technologies, and they need to have the tools, the computing tools, the access to AI. And this is my personal question. Okay, I know it's a little bit beyond the scope, and I will go back to the scope of Labdo. But the AI access introduces potential. So how to facilitate access to AI models that are more capable, right? At the end, it won't be just access to the infrastructure, but it will generate some divide if you can only access a poor model and others will access very potential and costly models. Do you see also big movements potentially happening? I know you have touched this somewhere, but this strikes me so much lately.
Mhm.
If
Yeah. So yeah, I do think that it's important to, when you have new powerful technologies, to that these technologies be as much democratized as possible.
Yeah,
Um, um, and indeed, that I think that's also the case with AI. That it's we're going to a world where we're going to be coexisting with AI, and but there are different ways we can take, different paths we can take. And I think that uh, what we do need to do is to choose a path where AI is as much we democratize AI as much as possible. What I mean by that is that as many developers, for instance, can actually participate in developing models, and that so yeah, for instance, right now the most powerful models are running on very expensive data centers, GPUs that only very big corporations can actually access to. And so that's challenging for somebody who wants to research at the university level or as a developer. So it's important that we are able to also unlock the ability to do research at the smaller scale. And I think that connects with the what we call the edge, right? The edge edge AI. Edge AI means that the AI runs is able to run on small devices, which could be your own laptop, your own phone, your own and so yeah, like doing research at the level where we enable these models that are capable of doing uh, good things, that they can actually run on devices that are really that people can access to. So that's I think some part of it. Yeah.
I fully agree, and there are lots of improvements in low cost compact AI that will make at the end it's about the job. So if an LLM depends on what you want. If it can give you some short task help or a very large compute intense, good. Here are a couple of things. There was one that it's about the trust, the chain of trust, and now linking to technologies. Have you seen opportunities of adding or needs to the chain of trust inside the Labdoo? Uh, I can imagine things like blockchains, or can you comment on opportunities where you saw research in related areas that you can bring to the concrete problem, and then the trade-offs where you say, okay, we need to go to the field, to the college, so we need to take some decisions that are trading off with we would it's not the perfect solution, but it's a good enough solution. And if you could exemplify it with some concrete examples so that our audience sees the the
Mm.
challenge of taking decisions that need to be practical, pragmatic, while giving of some optimal solution from a technology scientific perspective. And I think you are the best person to try to bring some example of these type of situations.
So yeah, so at the high level, when you're looking at the project, say like Labdoo, although this could be applicable to other domains, you have two broader strategies. One is following a centralized approach. The other is following a decentralized approach. And again, we see this pattern also in communication systems, right? So when you go centralized approach, yeah, you have full control of the system. But if talking about trust in the context of trust, which is, I think is the question here is about trust. If
Yes.
there's if something malfunctions in the system, then the whole system can collapse, right? Now, when the system is decentralized, if something goes wrong, the system is more resilient. Um, and and so the idea here, and this is part of the reason why Labdoo has, I think, succeeded in scaling up, because there were other projects also in the past, but they were following like a centralized approach, right? And in the case of Labdoo, so what number one is everything is open in the platform. All the information is available open. You can create a Labdoo account as a volunteer. Even if you don't have a Labdoo account, you can check what's the status. And so if there is a mistake in the system, then multiple eyes can look at it and check it. Oh, there was a mistake. Let's correct that. It works very similar to the wealth of networks concept that from UK Bangla that I mentioned in my slides. It works very similar to how the Wikipedia works. Wikipedia is resilient because, yeah, maybe somebody can make a mistake in an article, whether in good intentions or not so good intentions, that doesn't matter. It's a mistake or some misstatement. But because there are multiple people because it's an open platform, then the platform tends to converge to a state where actually things get corrected uh, um, in a matter of time, basically, because multiple people go there and check, oh, this is an incorrection, so let's correct it, right? So Labdoo operates under the same principles that, and so what you end up having a system that is, of course, you cannot guarantee 100% correctness all the time, but it's stable at the high correctness level because information is open, multiple eyes are checking when a laptop is traveling. It's not just one person that knows about that, it's multiple persons. There is the NGO, there is the volunteers, there is the hub, there is the donor who's tracking. And if something, part of the state is incorrect, something, then it can be corrected. And the other thing that I'll add to this is that, in fact, this is done, I think, in that, my thinking is that this is also by design and intentional, because it's a good thing that we aspire to do, to build a systems that we can nurture trust, actually. That I can do things just because that's the good thing to do, and enable that trust. So promote trust. To promote trust, of course, you need a system that has the checks and balances, that has that transparency and all these. But but then ultimately it's a human act that I trust this person, right? But when I enable that trust, that actually is very powerful, because then we not only just give education to a child, which may be the best gift you can give to a person, but also you're learning to trust, you're building trust. It's an asset that is not tangible, but it's very important, right? You're making friends, you're building trust, you're getting confidence in that we can trust each other, we can make this work together. And that's a very important outcome of this transaction overall itself. So yeah, that's,
I think that's great. Trustworthiness. We know the how to trust the AI. It's a matter that it's complicated, that spans over all our domains. I love your analogy with computer, like distributed versus centralized, those that have worked with software defined networking controllers, the trade-offs and distributed systems. It's a classical question, and it's a great lesson that you bring with Labdoo model in scaling in an effective way. At the end, it needs to be effective. I have a couple of other questions, like what if there is some insight of what you would have done different if you knew now. How many years have been now effective since you had this vision in Guatemala? It was 15 years or.
that first thing was in 2005, so it's been
It's 21
21 years.
years, right?
And then the project itself was launched 2009, 2010. So we've been running for now 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you knew now how things have evolved, if you could have come back to the Jordi at the time with the dreaming or the insights of Jordi in 2026, and do you think there could have been some decisions to move something more smoothly, or
mm,
streamline, or avoid some? Is there something that you have not told so far that could be a lesson for everyone? Or
mm. Yeah. So um, when you go on a journey, whatever you do, like a project or you imagine things a certain way, um, and then they surprise you. Um, so um, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that we've learned that if we had known before, then yeah, that maybe would have helped in some way or another. Uh, like I cannot pinpoint to a single thing, Christian, but maybe I need to think about that actually. But certainly, yeah, I can think of several, right? But which one would I now prioritize, right? So the point, I guess, to me, or maybe is that uh, yeah, it's you imagine things that can happen in a certain way, but then they don't happen in a certain way. They happen differently, but the way they happen differently, they surprise you. So, for instance, one thing I remember at the beginning thinking, okay, this I'm going to envision this as a project that anybody in the planet can participate, uh, and then it's going to grow organically. It's decentralized and all these, and um, and maybe, for instance, you thought that companies could from day one participate and even tag the laptops out of the factory and doing things, and then you realize that that's more complicated, right? So an element of being naive, I think, uh, is definitely was part of the story, but I think that being naive actually was good because it allowed us to think things that that maybe we thought this is impossible, right? But then you were able, somehow it happened, right? So don't be afraid to be naive in some of the things, in rethinking about things like I got the comment, wow, this is not going to scale, this is that, right? That's too naive. It is not. We can do this. um, and then I'll just say one thing that also surprised me, which is that in doing this, there was a lot of byproducts in this process that I thought the main outcome was giving education to students or kids, which is of course an important thing. But the what I realized is that a project like Labdoo generates a lot more things than that. For instance, we have many examples of people who have been empowered, by participating in Labdoo and unlock their talent. So we have, for instance, a professor in Spain who doing Labdoo at the school has won the national um, award on solidarity from the Spanish government. We have a person in Germany who was pre-retired, a former CEO from a company, and he had a health problem. He could not work, but he reached out to me and say, I can do volunteering work, and I know I can make Latu fly. And so this person has been doing it for years, has mobilized the whole country in Germany. He uh, not too long ago received the Federal Cross from the Chancellor from in Germany, so the most prestigious recognition for a citizen. We have examples of a kid in Tanzania who received a Labdoo laptop, fascinated by it, learned how to program, and then enable education, and then go for a career on programming. And now he has his own school teaching how to program and leading that community in programming, right? So many things that you don't expect that happen as that are these people who had so much talent, and then you put them in a good playground, and you unlock their potential, and then they mobilize the community and make things happen, right? So things that had not expected, but they surprised me in a nice way, I think.
I think that your reply was literally excellent, lovely, because uh, you I wanted to ask you about the philosophy or approach that you would recommend anyone, and you already phrased in another ways, like lessons that could apply to other type of projects and examples of creating impact, meaningfulness, right, for different people at different stages, from very young people to very experienced ones, and then the recognition by the society, and at the end, I think the own recognition, that at the end of the day, when you go to bed and you feel good, there is nothing that pays that feeling. And being in such type of community projects, at the end of the day, it pays off. And I think with that message, Jordi, we should close because we are on time. Our students have classes, and I'm really sorry for the YouTube streaming. I'm not sure what went wrong, but I will fix it. This recording, I see the red button is going on, so I will upload and put it in YouTube as it was expected. Thank you very much, and looking forward to meeting you in person, and also, or elsewhere, and catching up with the AI researchy, networking researchy topics that we have in common.
Thank you very much, Christian. Also to all the professors and students, and yeah, I'll stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.